Hi there, I'm Brian Whitmore, host of the Power Vertical podcast, and this is The Holiday Vertical. So 2017 is finally almost behind us. The centenary of the Bolshevik revolutions in the rearview mirror, as is the 80th anniversary of Joseph Stalin's Great Terror, two landmarks the Kremlin would rather forget. But 2017 being behind us also means that 2018 is upon us, and the anniversary season is not quite over yet. In fact, a pretty big one's coming up next year, and it is the subject of my holiday wishes for Russia and its neighbors. Next year marks 100 years since the end of World War I. But it wasn't just a brutal and bloody war that ended in November 1918, but an entire era in world politics. Because the end of the First World War also kicked off the end of the Age of Empires, or at least most empires. It marked the end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It set off the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and it heralded the beginning of the end of the British Empire. And guess what? Over the past century, Austria, Hungary, Turkey, and Great Britain went on to become viable, modern, and reasonably successful states. Now, the one empire that managed to survive 1918 was, of course, the Russian Empire. Sure, it did temporarily break up in the chaos of war and revolution, but it took the new Soviet authorities just years to reconquer the Belarusians, Ukrainians, and Georgians, and it took a couple decades before the Baltic states were reoccupied. By the middle of the century, the Soviet Empire had effectively reconstituted most of the old Russian one. Sure, they lost Finland, but they also gained their satellites in Eastern Europe. But ask yourself this. Whose citizens got the better end of the deal over the past century? The British, the Austrians, and the Turks who lost their empires? Or the Russians who kept theirs? According to recent research by the investment bank Renaissance Capital, a century ago Russia lagged behind major world powers in industrial might, and its economy was considered on par with Brazil and Mexico. It's pretty much the same today, with Russian GDP lower than the US state of New York. A century ago, raw materials accounted for 2/3 of Russian exports, just like today. And that's to say nothing of the effect the Russian Empire had on the Ukrainians or the Georgians. The Soviet Empire, of course, collapsed in 1991. But today, we're pretty much back where we were in 1918, with Russia trying to put it back together again. So, my holiday wish for the coming year, the centenary year of the end of the Age of Empires, is that in 2018, Russia will learn what the British, the Austrians, and the Turks learned in 1918. That there is, indeed, life after empire. And that life could be pretty good for both you and for your neighbors. Happy holidays, everybody. See you next year.